You know, the compact flagship phone race, it used to be pretty predictable, right? Well, this year, you can throw all that out the window. We're putting the new iPhone 17, Google's Pixel 10, and Samsung's Galaxy S25 head-to-head to find out which one of these small phones really stands the tallest. So, let's get right into it.
And let me just say, right off the bat, the results are not what you'd expect. Our source material is pointing to a major shakeup in the rankings this year, and honestly, the winner is a genuine surprise.
Okay, so let's meet the contenders for the crown. First up, we've got the iPhone 17, which is finally getting some of those hardware upgrades we've all been waiting for. Then there's the Pixel 10, also packing some new tech, and rounding out the trio, the Galaxy S25. You could call it the seasoned veteran in this fight, now more polished than ever with its latest software.
So, on paper, all three of these are built for that sweet, one-handed use. But when you look at the actual numbers, there's a pretty clear winner in the size department. The Galaxy S25? It's narrower, shorter, and thinner than the other two. It's just the most pocket-friendly of the bunch, plain and simple. But look, size is one thing. Where you really feel the difference is the weight. And this chart just tells the whole story, doesn't it? The Galaxy S25 is the featherweight here at just 163 grams. The iPhone's kind of in the middle, but then you get to the Pixel 10, a whopping 205 grams. Trust me, that's a difference you can absolutely feel in your hand day in and day out.
All right, let's move on to the displays. And this is where things get really interesting, because believe me, the spec sheet does not tell you the whole story here.
Okay, so if we're talking about just raw brightness, for using your phone in direct sunlight, the Pixel 10's display is an absolute flamethrower. Seriously, it cranks out over 2,300 nits. That's how we measure screen brightness, making it by far the easiest to see at the beach. The Galaxy puts up a decent fight, but the iPhone, yeah, it's kind of in a distant third in this specific test.
But here's the twist, and it's a big one. Even though it didn't win that raw brightness test, our source material concludes that, and I'm quoting here, the display on the iPhone 17 is the real MVP this time around. So what's going on? How is that possible?
Well, it's not just about one single feature. It's the whole package. You see, for the first time ever on a base model, the iPhone gets that super smooth, high refresh rate LTPO screen. That's the tech that lets the screen slow all the way down to 1 Hz when you're just looking at a photo, saving a ton of battery. You combine that with the absolute sharpest resolution of the three, the slimmest bezels, and a new anti-reflective coating, and suddenly you've got a winning formula. It's a massive and frankly long overdue upgrade.
Okay, on to the main event for a lot of people, the cameras. This is always a really complex comparison, right? There's a lot of nuance. But this year, one of these phones has a very clear, very obvious hardware limitation that just changes the whole dynamic of the fight. And yeah, that phone is the iPhone. I mean, come on, it's 2025, and the base iPhone 17 still doesn't have a dedicated telephoto lens. This just crushes its versatility for zoom shots compared to the competition. It's a huge deal for a phone at this price.
And you can see the disadvantage laid out right here. Both the Pixel and the Galaxy have their own dedicated telephoto lenses, giving them real, actual 5x and 3x optical zoom. Meanwhile, the iPhone is just stuck with digital zoom, which is basically just cropping the main sensor. It just can't deliver the same quality. It's not even close. That said, when it comes to the cameras it does have, the iPhone is actually a really balanced performer. In fact, it excels in a few key areas. The detail from its new ultra-wide is totally class-leading, and its video processing, it's still the standard for low light and for selfie shots. So yeah, while it loses badly on zoom, it's a super strong contender and often the winner in most other scenarios.
Okay, let's pop the hood and talk about performance. We've got a three-way showdown here. Apple's A19, Google's Tensor G5, and the Snapdragon 8 Elite for the Galaxy. And let me tell you, this is where we see the biggest performance gaps of all. And when I say the gap is big, I mean it's staggering. In these synthetic benchmarks like Geekbench, which just measure raw horsepower, the iPhone's A19 chip isn't just winning, it's in another universe. It absolutely demolishes the competition. This is where Apple's tight control over its hardware and software really pays off. The Pixel, unfortunately, isn't even in the same league.
And that raw power, it translates directly to real-world speed. It doesn't matter if you're gaming, exporting a batch of photos in Lightroom, or rendering a quick video in CapCut. The iPhone is consistently the fastest. The Galaxy, it holds its own pretty well, but again, the Pixel just falls way behind. I mean, look at this. It takes almost 12 minutes for a photo export that the iPhone knocks out in under 2. Wow.
But there's another really key idea here we need to talk about: thermal throttling. It's a big deal, especially in these smaller phones. Basically, when the chips get hot, they have to slow down to protect themselves. And while the Galaxy actually posted a super high peak score in one stress test, the iPhone had a better sustained score. What does that mean? It means it manages heat better and throttles less, keeping its performance high for way longer.
So, after all of that, after looking at the design, the display, the cameras, the performance, it is time for the final verdict. Which one of these phones should you actually spend your hard-earned money on?
All right, here we go. In third place, it's the Pixel 10. You know, it has a fantastic camera and that clean software experience we love, but its performance is just too far behind the curve this year. In second place, we have the Galaxy S25. It is a fantastic, super compact phone with really solid performance. But the clear winner, the top of the podium this year, is the iPhone 17. Apple finally upgraded the things that mattered most: the display, the performance, and the battery life, making it the best overall package, hands down.
Now, what really makes this comparison so interesting is the price. All three of these phones launched at the exact same retail price, $799, so they're going head-to-head on value.
However, there's a really crucial piece of context here. Because the Galaxy has been out for a little bit, you can often find it for a pretty big discount, sometimes down around $680. And at that price, it becomes an extremely compelling value option for anyone who's looking to save some cash.
Ultimately, the big takeaway here is that the massive improvements to the base iPhone 17 should really serve as a wake-up call for its competitors. It's just not enough anymore to rely on a few software tricks while letting the core hardware stagnate.
Which, leaves us with one final big question. Now that Apple has seriously stepped up its game on the standard non-Pro iPhone, will Samsung and Google be forced to respond with genuinely better hardware next year? Or are they just going to keep falling behind?